I can't meet my leaders at all. I had one meeting with Sonia Gandhi in 10 years. I've had one meeting with Rahul Gandhi in 8 years. I had one meeting with Priyanka Gandhi some 5 years ago.
Just out of curiosity, how many newspapers do you read? Like
One.
which one?
I read the Indian Express. Until he was there, it was the most biased newspaper. And it set the tone for this horrible thing called investigative journalism.
There is a lot of noise that's made by people who follow liberal ideas on social media and other places. But when it comes to election day, probably the conservatives win in India. So what happens on election day? Where do all the liberals go on election day?
Well, I don't think any significant portion of the liberal opinion has voted either in 2014 or 2019 for the BJP. What has happened in both these years is that the left liberal opinion has got split among so many different parties, regional as well as national, that with 37% of the vote, Mr. Modi has got away with more than two-thirds of the seats. So now I think the 2024 election, inshallah, will be different because the India Alliance, although they're still to complete sheet sharing talks and work out their common agenda, I think have made enough progress for us to feel confident that a relatively united front will be presented before the BJP, and that will be a huge challenge to the BJP.
What in your mind? What is the significance of 2024 elections?
Well, the significance is that the future of India is going to be determined by this election. Are we going to go down the path of Hindutva as a nation, or are we going to remain with the secular traditions of not only the post-independence movement, but the independence movement and indeed the whole of our civilization? Our civilization has been based on syncretism, on absorbing, on synthesizing, and allowing whatever is good from outside to come in, and whatever is good among us to keep that going. So there's been a continuity in India's civilization, and Hindutva is a challenge to that continuity. And therefore, I think this election is of quite exceptional importance.
Every election is a big event in India. Every election is important. Every time there's an election comes,
No, there have not been any elections in the past which have, apart from 1952, which have determined the path on which the country will go. I'm talking about basic values like unity in diversity, of a plural society, of a tolerant society, of a society based on non-violence. These kind of characteristics, which are written into the values of which are written into the Constitution, they are under very serious challenge, indeed threat today. And therefore, I believe that in 2024, if the country makes the wrong choice, then maybe it will be 50 years before we're able to get back to the right path. But I believe at the moment that there is a strong possibility that we may not be able to defeat the BJP, but we can stop them from having a two-third majority. That's ideal number one. Ideal number two is to not let them have a majority. And ideal number three is to have them defeated. So we have to be layered and tiered in our approach to these elections. But any one of these three outcomes will prevent our country from being completely transformed from a secular democracy to a majoritarian society.
That sense of humor and speaking true is an art that is lost on the modern day politicians.
You see, any joke at all, or any clever remark, or any playing on words, or any pun has to be taken in the spirit in which it's presented. If you take the spirit away and you just leave the words, then the same expression can be portrayed as being insulting. And the BJP is expert at that. And Modi in particular is totally dedicated to twisting what other people say, and in particular what Shankar Aiyar says. I said that he was a niche kisam ka aadmi. He twisted it to say that I said he was niche jaat. I never talked about his caste. I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in caste. I've cast aside my Brahmin identity. But he twists it and then uses it to his own advantage. And my party falls for it. They also don't have a sense of humor.
You used to be like a full-time politician. You have been
No,
with rallies all the time.
I'm not a full-time politician because my party has put me to one side. I can't meet my leaders at all. I had one meeting with Sonia Gandhi in 10 years. I've had one meeting with Rahul Gandhi in 8 years. I had one meeting with Priyanka Gandhi some 5 years ago, but never been able to see her after that. I met Mr. Kharge once. So I am regarded as an outsider, and I regard myself as an insider. So I'm an outsider on the inside. And therefore, I want to be a full-time politician, but my own party doesn't give me the opportunity. And in these circumstances, all I can do is to take an interest in politics. I do write a fortnightly column and occasional articles otherwise, and I try to promote in that the Nehruvian values with which I grew up. But how successful it is not for me to say, but you.
The other question is, some people credit the Nehruvian values and especially the time of Indira Gandhi for the rise of BJP.
In hindsight, you can discover everything that you did not know then. So it's ridiculous to compare what you know in hindsight with what you had predicted at that time. And to suggest that the rise of the BJP is because of Nehruvian values is to completely distort the history of post-independence India. This is an aberration, bhai. It's not as if Modi is going to last forever. I am predicting that in this coming election, Modi will be defeated at one of three levels. Either he will be denied a two-third majority, which in itself is a great victory for India, or he will be denied a majority at all, which is an even bigger victory for India, or he'll be defeated, which is the biggest victory that India could get. But to think that because he's won two elections, that therefore he's there with us until 2047 is ridiculous, is a ridiculous prediction.
That is actually...
And I just do not believe that a country which at the height of the Hindutva madness gave the BJP only 37% of the national vote and only half the Hindu vote is there forever. I don't think.
Panchayati Raj and the whole concept of decentralized, you shaped that, in many ways, you shaped what history would follow.
Well, the tragedy was that Panchayati Raj died on the day Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated. And what I've been involved in is trying to keep that noble concept going for the last 35 years. And it's because maybe I've studied it too hard, I find it very difficult to say it in a few words. But the fact of the matter is that Panchayati Raj is there. It has not been removed. And the main purpose of putting it into the constitution was to make it irremovable, ineluctable. And that has happened.
Just out of curiosity, how many newspapers do you read?
One.
Which one?
I read the Indian Express and I also get the Hindu. But the Hindu, I only read the editorial page. And for the rest, my wife is all the time on the iPad.
Why Express? Why Indian Express? Has
Well,
it
I
been like a
find the
habit
Express to be a paper, a true newspaper. It gives information, it gives analysis, it gives explanations, it gives background. I mean, imagine the owner saying that no story should be more than 300 words because that's the maximum attention that can be given by the reader. So, who is he writing for? You
for
know, when
paper
my
ever?
classmate,
Yeah.
my exact classmate, Arun Shori, left the Indian Express, I started reading it. Until he was there, it was the most biased newspaper. And it set the tone for this horrible thing called investigative journalism, which overtook the Indian media in the 1980s. Because investigative journalism is supposed to reveal the seamy side, but not to hide the other side. And there was a tendency on the part of papers uh, like the Indian Express to be totally partisan, and to be unashamedly so. So they became instruments of politicians. I mean, the relationship between Arun Shori and Gyani Zahel Singh, which has now been documented by K.C. Singh in his book called The Indian President, he seems awful that journalists were being taken in cars anonymously. The people like Girilal Jain being taken anonymously to meet the president to see how the prime minister can be overthrown. And all this for the Bofors case, which I talked about today. It's all very well to get 300 names, but how do you link them to Rajiv Gandhi? That they didn't do. They just got whatever information and they reproduced it.